me from. My name is Joshua Awesome. I am humbled, grateful, and delighted to be able to join you with another edition of the Gospel According to Stress. Interestingly, this edition is actually one that I am pretty much going to bring a story, and the story for this week is actually going to be one that I start with. However, before I actually go into all of that, I'd like to begin by saying it's a great day. Greetings to you. If you are joining me from America, greetings to you. If you're joining me from West Africa, um, greetings to you. If you're joining me from the United Kingdom or you're joining me from Europe. And this is where I had people joining me from for the episode and edition that I did last week. So last week, Sunday, I started what is now called Gospel According to Stress. Now, and that is what I want to also focus on and unpack this Sunday. Now, my name is Joshua Awesome, for those who do not know. And this week, I'm actually going to start with a story. Now, this story is a true story. It's a story that I never really thought that I was going to be part of it. You know, every day I wake up as a coaching psychologist, as a mental health professional. The one thing that is at the back of my mind that then has become a part of my consciousness is, Joshua, what great will emerge through you today? Um, and just as I'm expecting something great to emerge through me, I am also expecting something great to happen to me. And there are a couple of great things that happened to me this past week. I'm curious to know if there's anything great that happened to you this past week. Why is that important? Because that is the very first thing that you can do to lower your stress levels. All right. So there's a scripture in the Bible that says, "Count it all joy." So for you to count it all joy, you need to document that which would bring you into that place and space of joy. All right. So sometimes while we are going through challenges, while we are going through things, where we're going through whatever it is that is going through us, we are busy counting the things that are not going well rather than counting the things that have gone well. Because when you count the things that have gone well, you will have much more to count that will go well. So that's where I'd like to start from. And so that consciousness guides my daily living, it guides my weekly being, it guides my monthly lifestyle, it guides my annual way of living, which is a very, very important principle that you and I can put to good use. Success leaves clues. Clues are cues to guide us towards our next step towards some form of success in our life. And so it leads me to that story that I wanted to start with. And that story for me is one that I would never ever forget for as long as I live on the planet. So I had gotten up that day, last week, Monday to be precise, and I was looking forward to the opportunity to sharing a successful past week and documenting it in my journal. By the way, that's another very important thing that I think you and I need to take very seriously. Journal your journey. Ink the things that have gone well for you, and the things that have gone well for you will ignite and inspire you towards experiencing something great that can go well again towards you, or go well in you, for you, and with you. Let's move to that story. So I had excitedly documented all the exciting things that have happened to me in the past week. And so in the night, I stepped out of my hotel, um, and I was headed towards a particular restaurant. And for those of you who follow me on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, you possibly have seen a story that I recorded for me from a position where I was lying down on the floor. And here is what happened that day. As I walked towards that restaurant, I saw what looked like a sea of commotion. And the first thing that caught my attention was a crowd. The crowd had actually surrounded a particular vehicle. And this vehicle, black in color, I would never forget. Even though it was in the night, it was clear that that car was the vehicle that had been linked to the major crisis, or that had catalyzed the emergency. Remember, when something feels like an emergency, something is about to emerge. And that for me is something that I have come to build into my consciousness. So as I walked towards that restaurant, I saw the sea of commotion, and I suddenly began to walk towards the exact spot where a lot of people were gathered. And lo and behold, as I walked there, I noticed that a woman was being dragged out of her vehicle. And she was being dragged so recklessly by one or two persons, possibly because of the anger that the accident had emanated and ignited and triggered from the people who were present at that position and location. I would never forget, as I stood and I watched the whole commotion, I suddenly motioned to all the persons who are pulling her to please step back, that I am a mental health professional and I am happy to check what the case is and see how I could help. The first thing I did was I tried to watch her facial expression, and I could see that she was actually in a very traumatic state. Then I tried to check her pulse. Long and short, based on my African mental health first aid research knowledge and expertise, I genuinely shared with everyone who was there that the woman needed air. So I requested everybody to please step back. And as they stepped back from that place, I would never forget that particular experience taught me something very vital. Okay? And this is one very vital lesson that everyone who is watching this or is going to watch this needs to take very, very seriously. Every time somebody is in a crisis, the best situation, the best solution is to give them help. And help is always available. All right? Help for me could mean hello, expertise, leadership professional. Okay? And hello, expert leadership professional. So in that place and space, I was the hello expert, the helping expert, and learned professional with regards to mental health who was available that day. And I would never forget. Typically, in that type of a crisis, because of the traffic, and it was a Monday night, I would never forget. There was no way emergency services was going to be able to navigate and get to that spot and that place right on time. So, and I made myself a channel of good. I quickly checked and I requested people should step back. And this is not the first time this type of situation will happen. So based on my research knowledge, based on the type of learning that I have availed myself with, and I remember taking an African mental health first aid specialized research work that I was doing. And I recall certain things that one needed to take note of as an African to be able to help in the midst of a crisis. And these are some of the things that I brought to that spot and that place this particular day. Here's the one important thing that I want you to take note of. Many times when a crisis occurs, we need to clear the way. We need to clear our minds. We need to make sure that nothing is clogging the pathway. And that was the first thing that I did. Try to ask everyone around to please step back so that air, which is natural, is available for the woman first and foremost. Okay? The second thing that I was very interested in doing was to try to bring calm to this woman. And here's a very important piece here. While all of that was happening, I remember one or two persons were trying to film the story. They were trying to record the story. Now, many times, and I say this from a place of purpose, many times the support, the action, the step that is needed is not what people are thinking of. People are thinking of how to be the first to report it. And the first to report it means the first to film it. The first to create content. Rather than thinking of creating content, how about we being conscious of a human life? Because while people are trying to go live on maybe Instagram or go live on Facebook or go live on Twitter and share the story, it is better to recognize that the life that one is standing or sitting around is more important than everything that we are facing. And I say that from a very good place, because as much as it is important to document things, it is wrong to document rather than instead of diving, okay, towards saving a life. So documenting is good, but documenting at the right time is better. And there are some things that I encourage people, please, rather than focusing on going live or sharing the tweet, the story, for likes, think of the life that is, staring you in the face. Think of how you can save the life that is currently going through whatever it is that requires some form of help. And I know from experience that many times all that somebody just needs is kindness. And that's the next thing that I'd like to highlight. The woman was on the floor, gasping for breath, in need of air, experienced a traumatic situation from what had happened. By the way, she had crashed into 3 public buses, 2 SUVs, and 2 other vehicles. All right? When you calculate that, that's 7 vehicles in total. So this accident happened with 7 vehicles. One of the SUVs, I remember, had a baby in the back seat. And the baby in the back seat, I recollect, was crying. And really, truly, I could see the face of the parents. They were in a state of shock. Because according to them, after the whole situation had subsided, I remember they said to me, our baby being alive and safe is one great thing that we're excited about. Now, let me say this to everyone who is watching this or will watch this. Don't ever forget that every life matters. From the life of the woman who was the one that catalyzed the entire accident, to the lives of the owners of the public buses, to the life of the baby who was in the vehicle, to the lives of all the others around. Everybody's life is important. However, the one thing that I realized was that as they were dragging her out, they were thinking from their reptilian brain. And they wanted to get into a fight mode. And in wanting to get into a fight mode, what they were going to do was they were definitely going to attack the woman. Now, I'm grateful and humble that I was there at the right time. Don't ever forget this. Many times, you and I find ourselves at the right place at the very right time. What that means is that you are at that place on purpose. So sometimes while you are thinking about your own stresses, your own life challenges, the things that are happening to you, the things that are going through, that you are going through, don't forget that you can actually be a channel of good for somebody, even in the midst of your own trying times. And that is why I quoted that scripture, count it all joy when you go through diverse temptations. Now, here's the thing. Typically, when we are going through a trying time, a situation, the one thing that we are consumed with is what we are going through. Don't forget that while you are going through whatever you are going through, somebody else too is going through something else. And so when that accident happened, I would say, as much as I'm grateful that I was there, I'm sure the woman who was involved in this accident was grateful that I was there. And let me tell you how I know she was grateful. At the end of the whole commotion and crisis, after I have helped her return back to consciousness, after all the 7 vehicles that she had crashed into, all right, had come to hear what it was. And this is what had happened. The woman had had what we call brain fog. Now, brain fog is a post-COVID condition. It's a post-COVID symptom. Now, here's the funny thing about brain fog. Sometimes a person who is experiencing brain fog does not know they're experiencing brain fog. All right? And I see some of my friends from around the world chiming in right now. Thank you so much, Bukola, for chiming in. Thank you, Zia. I see Zia chiming in from the US. Bukola, thank you also for chiming in. And thanks to everybody who is also chiming in to this gospel according to stress. This week, I am focusing on a post-COVID condition. That post-COVID condition is called brain fog. And I encourage everyone who is watching, everyone who is chiming in, to please share this video. Share it with someone you love. Share the last week's one with somebody you love. And they will thank you for it. Because many people around the world who either had COVID or had the stress of COVID. And what do I mean by the stress of COVID? So there's what we call COVID stress syndrome, CSS. There are many persons who, because of COVID, either lost their job or they lost a family member, or their relationship was impacted. Something somewhere somehow happened to you. And every one of us on the planet, we either lost a loved one, okay? Might not be somebody directly in your family, but maybe your extended family. But they are family anyway. So the entire globe, there's nobody who's living on the planet who did not experience either COVID or the stress behind COVID. You either fall into one or both categories. Whichever category you fall into, don't forget that you are not alone. The same way the globe experienced COVID, that is the same way the globe experienced grief. So we all experience what we call global grief. All right? The entire globe experienced it too. And so that's why, for me, I spend a lot of my time as a stress reduction specialist, as a mental health professional, as one who is passionate about this continent, Africa, seeking to inform, to educate, to enlighten, to get people knowledgeable, about mental health, so that it does not lead towards mental illness. Because when you address and are aware about the mental health challenges you are having, it can be treated, and then it does not become mental illness. And I encourage everyone who is chiming in, please, if you didn't start this from the very start, you are welcome to watch this. It is on YouTube, it is on Facebook, it is on Instagram. And once again, for those who are just joining in, thank you so much for chiming in. My name is Joshua Awesome. So I was telling the story of a woman who had crashed into 7 vehicles this past Monday. And I was humbled and grateful to have walked into the accident after it had happened. I am humbled and grateful that I was a channel of good on the planet for somebody that I do not know. And that is why I am sharing this story, because the best time to get knowledge about a mental health crisis is before it happens. So if you know what to do and how to spot a mental health crisis, you will know who to call. You will know how to provide some form of support for them. That is why the gospel according to stress is being shared every Sunday. And I really hope for the next couple of Sundays, you will learn something from this. You will be more humane to people you meet. You will meet them and support them as best as you can, or you will approach whatever it is they're going through from a place of knowledge. Here is what I would like you to take away from that story. The woman who had this accident situation had blanked out when she eventually got resuscitated. And we were trying to find out from her where she was coming from and where she was going to. And she said to me, and I quote, "I actually had gone to buy myself some medication and I couldn't get the meds." Now, the details of the medication is not important, but I also have come to realize that many of us in Africa and people of African descent, we self-medicate. All right? Because less than 30 minutes after she had left the pharmacy where she had tried to go get, that medication, is when this accident happened. That's the one thing. So have you been self-medicating? All right? That is why the scripture I quoted today is actually the scripture I'd like to use. Count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations. So in that situation was like a temptation. I don't know what medication she was going to get. I don't know what, maybe it was, self-prescription or dosages, because sometimes people, try to cut corners to get medication that really, truly, they should not self-medicate with. And where am I going to with this story? It is important you realize this. Sometimes abuse of medication is what leads to certain mental health challenges. And this is research. And the one thing I want everyone who is on this call to please take away from the story I have just told you is that it is important that we recognize that every one of us is on the planet, not just for ourselves. We're on the planet for the greater good. Somebody watching today will share this video with somebody. You are on the planet to be a channel, okay? The same way I am sharing this knowledge, I have spent a lot of money educating myself because I wanted to be a channel of good on the planet. I went further to study positive psychology. I went further to study how to be able to support people from a traumatic point of view. I went further to study how to be able to bring these skills in therapy to support people. These were intentional investments because I want to be a channel on the planet. Let me close that story with one very key lesson. At the end of the calming down, everyone who heard what had happened to the woman suddenly realized that stress is an equalizer. The same way she blanked out, okay? When a person has brain fog, it can bring you into a place of blanking out, where you lose your memory, where you don't remember a lot of things, and you can trace it back to stress. All right? Typically, people who have brain fog, when you think about it, based on the World Health Organization, it is one of the COVID symptoms, okay, post-COVID symptoms. And I encourage every one of you, go on YouTube, go and watch some of the World Health Organization videos that talks about brain fog. You will realize that there are over 400 million persons on the planet who have post-COVID conditions. What it means is that you might also have one and you don't know it. What it means is that it is important for you to care for yourself, to please notice once your body is feeling some form of discomfort and you don't know where it is coming from. I encourage everyone who is watching, please don't take yourself, your family, people you come in contact with, your colleagues at work, or your relations, or somebody you meet at your community. Maybe you meet them in church, or you meet them at a restaurant, you meet them in school. If you're a student, you meet them on campus. If you work, whatever work you do, the people you meet while you're trying to do your work, don't forget that somebody somewhere out there is going through something. And the one thing you can be is to be a kind person. I have said it for those who care to listen over and over again, that the word humankind is a combination of human plus kind. When you fuse them together, that's what makes humankind. It doesn't cost much to be kind. When you are kind to a person, the truth about it is that you bring yourself to experience it back, because what you are serving is a seed, and every seed gets to germinate, and every germinated seed gets to produce a tree, and every tree eventually produces fruits, and from the fruits it can then return back to the roots. So you and I need to be intentional about our living, about our life, because it doesn't cost much to be kind to somebody. So let me close with that story by sharing something very important. The public buses that were involved in that accident initially wanted to lynch the woman. However, when they got to listen and hear me out, explaining everything to them, of course, I was also very creative about it, because I could see the anger and the energy that was welling up in them. After settling the woman down and taking her to a proper place to sit, I then connected with the bus drivers, and I had an honest conversation with them as a man. Here is the lesson that I'd like you to take away from that last piece of information. There is always a way out of whatever you get into. Whatever stress is stressing you, there's always a way out of it. The way out for that woman was to ask people to step aside, ask them to make way so that she can get fresh air. And the solution was, as she began to breathe and I began to help her come into a lower stress level and helped her to breathe, take inner deep breaths, all right? And helped her to lay flat so that there is no restriction from the air flowing into her inner landscape. She was able to get resuscitated and get rejuvenated. And because of that also, it dawned on those who are watching the situation that I am a professional when it comes to mental health, when it comes to trauma. And I was able to bring solution to that situation. And because of that, it gave them trust for me. Somebody out there needs to see you being kind to another person, and you will earn their trust. Somebody out there who you might not know would need your help, could need your help, may just be looking forward to the kindness that comes from your humanity. And this is one of the things that I want every one of us to hear today. Can I say this to you? That day, I wasn't paid a cent for anything that I did. I wasn't looking forward to being paid for it. Can I say something else to you? That particular week, an event that I had facilitated, a mental health event I had facilitated, and I had not heard from the organization. Yes, I was expecting payment, but I had not heard from the organization. I was contacted and asked to send a write-up detailing my particular time duration, more like a report of sorts. And I remember as I finished it, it was minuted on by the head of the organization, and I was paid a handsome fee. And I wouldn't discuss the details, but the truth is I was paid what I least expected. Now, here is why I'm sharing this story with everyone who is getting to listen. Many times, while you are showing kindness to somebody you do not know, the kindness you are looking forward to experiencing, maybe in some other area of your life, is actually being watered, is being flowered, is actually flourishing already. And that's the one thing that I want you to take away from this story that I'm sharing with you. The woman that I helped, the people I helped, I have no idea where they live. I mean, I haven't even seen them ever since, and whether I see them or bump into them, doesn't really matter. What is important, and that is the one thing I want everyone to take away from here. Your kindness is not just being kind to people. It is also you being kind towards yourself. And here's where I'm going to with all of this. That exact week, I ended the week receiving payments that I wasn't expecting, even though I had done some mental health first aid work for an organization. Now, here's where what I want you to remember. Right now, I want you to remember that as you go into this week, the gospel according to stress can be a guide for you. All right? Recognize that, newsflash, whatever is stressing you, you can lower it by being of service to somebody else. All right? So count it all joy when you're finding yourself in a stressful situation. All right? And then serve the world, serve your community, serve your family, serve your loved one, even people that you think don't deserve it. Serve them. Why? Because what you are doing is that you are sowing a seed that will eventually lead to a harvest of lower stress for you. Now, here is the one important thing that actually comes to my mind as I wrap up that story. That day, a mechanic and a car repair specialist was called to that location. And when the car repair specialist came, I would never forget, he came with his truck, was trying to assess all the vehicles. And I recall a lady whose vehicle had been crashed into. Okay, the bumper of that vehicle had been crashed into, and it was really a write-off. And she had contacted her own repair person. The repair person, because of the panic in her voice, billed her ×2 of the cost. How do I know? When the repair person of the specialist who fixes the car of the woman who caused the accident, okay, when her own service people arrived with their truck, her repair specialist went to assess one of the vehicles, which is the vehicle that had the bumper damaged, and it was a write-off, and then called their supply place and found out that the price that he could offer it, because of course he was dealing directly with his own supply team, I realized was half of what that woman had been quoted by her own repair specialist. Here is one important lesson there. Many times when we are in a panic mode, people can perceive that panic. And many times people capitalize on it. Think about it for one moment. So whatever it is that you are going through right now, whatever stresses or situation is making you want to feel like panicking, remember, just the way it has come, it's the same way it will pass. And I want you to recognize that. This too shall pass. That's what I want you to keep at the back of your mind as we move into this week. Whatever the stresses you're experiencing, it shall pass. And how do you get it to pass? Sit back and ink your thoughts. Think back about your life. Today is September 11th. All right? And there's a memorial for America today. And we remember September 11 today. When the September 11 crisis Twin Tower situation happened, some people thought their lives would never be the same. But think back. It's many, many years since that time now. Yes, some people's lives may feel it's not the same, but if you are alive and you are watching this, don't forget that some people died yesterday. You are here today. It's one thing to be grateful for. Whatever you need today, think back to the things that you needed yesterday. Even if you don't have all of it, all right? You have some of it. Did you have a place to sleep last night? That's something to be grateful for. Have you had water to drink today? That's something to be grateful for. Do you have electricity? That is something to be grateful for. I mean, I live in Africa and I shuttle between Nigeria and South Africa for work. And both countries experience what we call load shedding. Okay, load shedding, power cuts, which means we get to use generators, inverters, solar power. Guess what? All of this is needing to generate energy. And even you right now, as you are listening to me, there's some measure of energy that you're able to generate when you fed yourself, when you've drank water, when you are in health. So you are a generator of life. You are a generator of energy yourself. And this is one thing that you should and can be grateful for. You're listening to me right now. If you can hear me with your 2 ears, that's something to be grateful for. Why? Because part of the post-COVID conditions is that some people actually have lost their sense of hearing. If you had a meal this morning, and you've had something to drink or eat, and you can taste what you are eating or drinking, that is something to be grateful for. That's also one of the post-COVID conditions, by the way, where people lose their sense of taste. I just took a breath in now, and I was able to breathe in air. I was able to smell it. Have you noticed when rain is coming and it's about to fall, you can actually smell the rain? If your sense of smell is still active and alive, that's another thing to be grateful for. Because some people have lost their sense of smell since COVID. Now, if you can see me, that is something not to take for granted. And I share all of this because when you sit back and you think back to your life, there's at least one thing that you can be grateful. At least one thing. At least one thing that you can be grateful for. And that's what I'd like you to do when we finish this gospel according to stress. The scripture that I've shared today is count it all joy when you fall into diverse temptations, into diverse trials. Okay, you feel like your life is being tried right now by, maybe a situation that is in your relationship. The question is, while you are taking note of the things that are not working well, how about you pause and ask yourself, what is one thing that is good about this relationship? What is one thing that is good about this family member? What is one thing that is good in my life? Because there's at least one thing that you can be thankful for. All right. So I'd like you to type in the chat box right now. What are you grateful for today? Just one word. Type in the chat box if you can. All right. Type one thing that you are grateful for. All right. If you can, and I'm going to look forward to reading at least one. And I encourage you to do this. Why is it important? Because when you ink your thoughts, when you journal something you are grateful for, thank you, Omo Charles, for coming on and joining us. When you take time to document one thing you are grateful for, what you are doing is that you are sending that activity signals to your brain. And your autonomous nervous system is also feeling it. Why? Because your brain, your body does not even know the difference between yesterday and tomorrow. All right? Thank you so much. Omar Charles says he's grateful for his family and his friends. But that's one important thing. And I encourage you to let that be something you do, not just here on this, live call. Do it once every day. Do it as you start your day tomorrow or before you go to bed today. Ink one thing that you are grateful for. All right? Write it down. If you don't have a journal, write it in your phone. Start with that, okay? And make a note every day. Sit down and reflect and ask yourself, what went well today? At least one thing will go well every day for you. Because we focus too much on the things that are not going well. That's why we are not grateful. Okay? We need to be grateful for the things that are going well. Because when you are grateful for one thing that goes well, there will be much more added to that one that will increase your gratitude box. All right? And this is very, 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 very important. And I encourage everyone who is watching me right now, from wherever you are chiming in from, whether you're chiming in from the US, from Europe, from West Africa, from Southern Africa, from East Africa, wherever it is you are chiming in from, I encourage you, at the end of this, please share this video with your friends. All right? You could be saving a life, because stress is real more than ever before. Okay? And as a mental health first aid specialist, as one who supports people as a coaching psychologist, I can tell you, based on data from the World Health Organization, there are over 400 million persons on the planet who are living or have post-COVID conditions. And one of the post-COVID conditions is what I shared earlier for those who are just joining us. And I shared the story of a woman who crashed into 7 vehicles, and people were trying to lynch her and dragged her out of the vehicle. And I walked into the scene when that was about to happen. And then I was able to then save the woman. But more importantly, I noticed that she was in a panic mode, and the trauma was already affecting her to the point where she was actually gasping for breath. And I had to use my expertise and skills to support her and help her gain her consciousness. Here is the important thing about that. Every one of us will need someone someday. As I said in my New York Times best-selling book, people enable people to succeed. As I begin to close, I'd like to share with you 1, 2, or 3 things that I've highlighted for the benefit of those who are just joining us. 1, many times you never know what good will emerge from you if you are not expecting it. So I wake up every day as Joshua Awesome, and I say to myself as my feet is about to touch the ground, what great will emerge from me today? And that guides my being. Possibly that's how I was guided towards that place where that incident happened. 2, when you are in a place and help is needed, see the word help as, hello, eternal loving provider, which means the Creator could use you as the provision for somebody's situation. I also said earlier that for me, as a professional, help could mean, hello, executive or expert leadership professional. So in my area of expertise, I am a leader. I'm a professional. And I was able to bring my skills to support that woman's crisis that day. It's the same way you are a professional or a person who can be a helping hand. You know, many times we want to give a hand out. No. I think what we should be giving each other is a hand up. All right? A hand up means you are lifting the person out of that situation they are in to be able to make their life better rather than bitter. As I begin to close, the very last lesson that I'd like to share from all that I have shared earlier is that many times while you are thinking about your own stresses, somebody who needs your help could actually be a catalyst for creating a pathway for that which you need or desire to come through. And I have told the story of me facilitating a mental health first aid program at an organization the week before that crisis. And yes, it's what I do. That's how I make money. And I was hoping that, I will be paid that same day for the engagement, but I wasn't. Only for me to then get a request from the head of the organization after helping that woman to send in a report, like a letter of sorts, which I did. And I got an approval for ×2 of what I was hoping I would get. Here is the important story there. Gratitude is the vitamin of the human soul. When you are grateful, you are nurturing, you are nourishing, you are flowering your own life through that attitude in itself. And I hope that this week's gospel according to stress has hopefully helped somebody to think about how to lower their stress levels. As I always like to close, I always like to encourage that we take a moment to just center ourselves. Wherever you're watching him from, you may lower your gaze, you may close your eyes. You don't have to. And I'm just going to guide you in a quick de-stress technique. Take a deep breath in. Hold it. And out. We're going to do that again. Take a deep breath in. Hold it. And out. Let's do it one more time. Take a deep breath in. Hold the breath. 1, 2, 3, 4. And breathe out. I wonder how you feel after that short moment of doing that. It is scientific, and it's part of what I learned as a technique for helping to bust stress within a short time frame. And I really hope that this has been inspiring for somebody out there, has brought you some form of relief, and more importantly, it has given you a beautiful moment here at Gospel According to Stress. My name is Joshua Awesome. I never like to close without saying, until next time when I come your way, please continue to take care of your mind and take charge of your life. Remember to share the video, and next week Sunday I will see you again for another edition of Gospel According to Stress. It's me, Joshua Awesome, wishing you a week full of peace and abundant blessings. Bye for now.